So this is showing, zooming into that solar study where you can see how that plays out. And this ended up being nice as well for, it's good for the surrounding environment. It's also good for people inhabiting the spaces, because if you're in the taller building, instead of being right on top of Main Street, you actually get views of it. And as well, having a corner piece on this important corner here works out well urbanistically. So we really like this, and we modeled that, you can see afterwards. And this is a picture of kind of a generic tower, and showing how that looks. And now we're looking, we're standing at the courthouse looking down toward Limestone. Okay, then the next step was looking at what is the concept for the block. The towers are going to take, we have just begun on thinking about the taller pieces of the structure, but we spent more time thinking about the block and how does it meet the city, and how does it, how do people experience, the base of this building. And we had some different concepts, different ideas of how to do it. And this is again taking the Sanborn map and looking at the site. We had this feeling that there was a texture to this that felt very, almost like a pixelated texture. And so our first concept for the block was to create a pixelated block, we call it, where the smaller pieces are around the edges, varying heights, and the bigger massive pieces are in the middle. This is kind of the first sketch of how that might work. And this is a model in our office. This is a different scale. We have a giant model in the office too. We couldn't bring it, sorry about that. Couldn't get it on one of the small planes. But you can see how this block texture starts to look and how it starts to fit in to the city. So this is from Vine Street here, and then you can see Main across the way. And you can see this texturized different heights and bringing light in through clerestory glazing. And if you take the program and map it out into that space, it looks something like this. And this is very preliminary, but so what would be on Main Street would be, we would have some smaller retail spaces, large retail spaces, a restaurant. There would be a larger specialty restaurant on Vine, and this is all, like I said, a lot of working with developer is waiting to see who you can attract, because you build it to the tenants that you can attract. And then we would have the hotel here on Vine that would be their lobby and a retail space. And there would be one exception in the block where people could go down to the parking that's below grade or drop off at the hotel. And then we would take loading and pull it off the street on Upper Street. So this is there would be above here would be office building, and you could come into the office off Limestone. So you get this mix of living, working, eating, all facing out toward the city, and instead of facing inward. And if you do a generic diagram of that, it looks something like this, showing where the sun is. We want to make use of rainwater too, collect rainwater and reuse that for the building uses. As we get further in, we will be exploring more of our sustainable concepts. But here you can see how this is, Main Street on this side, how that diagram unfolds. So the big tall building part of it is pulled away from the Main Street facade. Okay, now this is our second concept for the block, which we were inspired by the shapes of the pastures out there, and the interesting thing about the shapes is they're designed, for a function. They have curved corners because horses don't turn right corners, and when they get to the edge, they like to run it around. And what these inner spaces are used for are it's like a network of movement. And so we thought maybe we could use that as an idea for a network of movement. This is a view of the pastures from above, and you can see how there's some irregular things which have to do with movement of water, landscape features. And so we just looked at a pattern, something like that, and thought maybe the block could have some organization this way. Of course, we're on a very square block, so it's becoming more regularized. And this is, some of the early sketches for those pasteurized network. And this one, we're using the program in the same orientation and the same solar orientation. An idea of a place that's, even though the stores are still facing out to the street, there is kind of an inner network that allows access for public and also for services through the space. And this is working on a bigger model of that piece, network block model, which looks something like this. It's not too different in terms of the diagram, but. And then just added this slide that shows, what does a space like this look like in the city when it's built out? And here you can see the scale of it, and it even though the block looks very big, when you put it into the context of the city and think about the size and space of these spaces, the retail spaces and the restaurants and the footprint of the tower, this fits very well into the existing context, and it fills out the block. It doesn't create big blank areas like some of the other developments. And so this is kind of what we brought to have you all look at. We haven't advanced very far on the tower. As I said, we were really focusing on the block, but our intention is to come back again and show you the beautiful images that we haven't done yet, because we haven't really solved the design of the tower, but you can kind of see where we're starting to go with some of these models. We have two different ideas for that, and we're working on both of those. And I think this is basically to show you our process, and I just want to also mention, let's see next slide here, this idea of the guest architects that we want to invite. So what I showed you so far for the block is that idea of the pixelated block and the network block. And we have 4, but we don't know for sure exactly how many spots. But what we want to do for that now is select some architects from here very quickly, but we're going to be following a schedule something like this, where today is the second. We're going to be putting an RFQ up on the AIA website, for the Kentucky AIA website next week, and we're going to select a group of architects to work with us. They would be design consultants to us for these parts of the building, and based on the qualifications, and we will be hopefully selecting by the 30th of June. So the qualification will probably be due on June 23rd. And then hopefully on our next meeting, once we get that scheduled, we will be able to say who those architects are. We'll be able to show you more about the tower, and we will be able to get more feedback. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening. We've talked about the city, the block, next steps, and now we want to hear from you. So thank you very much.
All right, how many people think we should spend $10 million on doing the central air in this building? Thank you all so much. I apologize, it's hot. This has been, I guess we're Southerners and we should get used to it, but we haven't been too used to it recently. But what we want to do is make sure you all have a chance to come up and talk to Jeannie and meet her and the team, talk to Dudley and Woodford about what they're thinking, talk to anyone. So anybody who has a tag on, come grab them. In the other room, which is a little bit cooler, there's drinks and ice and refreshments. Thursday Night Live is downstairs. The History Museum is on the first, second, and third floor, so please wander through. But we're all going to stick around, but the rest of it, we want to have some informal conversation. We want you all to be able to get up and talk to the designers and look at the models. And there's also some discussion we'd like to have in the other room about down.